You're at Lake Rant, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Fath, who says, rant about a time where your opinion on an anime completely changed and explain why the reason behind it. It could be a show you first thought was very good or amazing, but you couldn't even watch the first episode 1 or 2 years later, or the opposite of this. I'm curious to see a bit how your opinion on the static show evolves over time. I gotta tell you, my opinions have changed massively on a lot of shows because I've been into anime for a long time, and what I really get out of it has continually shifted. So I'm just going to go through that whole history because it'll make more sense what I've been into when I talk about it that way. So when I was like a little kid, when I was 7 years old, I was really into Pokemon, and that lasted up to when I was like 11. So, and even before that, I'd been into Power Rangers, I'd been into Beast Wars, which is an offshoot of Transformers, which is, anime-esque. Like, I always had things I liked that were either Japanese or adjacent to this stylistically. And, I got into Pokemon very naturally and was just way more into it than anybody else I knew. So, and I was abreast of course, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon. Like, these things were all on Cartoon Network. I watched Cartoon Network constantly. So, like, I didn't know any of this stuff as anime, but anime was around me, as a kid. And when I got into it properly, it was because my cousin showed me and another cousin Ninja Scroll, and we liked it because it was insanely fucking violent, and it was fucking badass. The action scenes were super cool. And Samurai Jack came out around that time, so there was all this awesome action in that. And then, they start airing anime, and my cousin gets this magazine about it, and he, discovers this idea of what anime is right when they start up the Adult Swim lineup. And, you could watch Yu Yu Hakusho and shit, and Inuyasha, and watch all these awesome fight scenes. And Cowboy Bebop has awesome action scenes in it, too, even if it's about a lot more than that. Rurouni Kenshin eventually came to the station. I was watching anime for action. I did not want to watch anything other than action shows where guys with swords cut each other up. That was my interest in anime. And I don't particularly know why I was so drawn to that aesthetic. I just thought it was cool. I listened to a lot of nu metal and shit. I was just like one of those kids who was kind of edgy and liked fucking cool shit. But I had been terrified of violence for most of my childhood. I was only able to get into it because of anime, because it was abstracted enough that it was a cartoon. I was terrified to watch violent movies growing up. So even with anime, I didn't want to watch stuff that was overly dark. I was 12 or 13, and my cousin who was 16 was into Devilman and real fucking gory shit, and he wanted to buy that kind of stuff, that more heavy metal kind of shit, and I was trying to stick to shows that were more shonen-y and just action centric, and Shonen Jump started releasing in the US in 2003, so I was reading that too, and that was exactly the kind of shit I was looking for, I think most kids who got into anime in the mid 2000s, they connected to it through Naruto, One Piece, maybe rediscovering Dragon Ball, though there were other kids who had already gotten into Dragon Ball, not even really thinking of it as anime, just being into Dragon Ball for a long time, whereas I think with Naruto, you more understood that it was anime when you got into it, because that was kind of a thing by that point. So, for a long time, I'm basically just a shonen kid. But because of the fact that my cousin would buy all this obscure stuff that he heard about online, I was exposed to other action shows like S. Cryed before they, came to Toonami. And I just gradually got into more and more obscure anime, but not necessarily stuff that was outside of my genre, until I started going through depression in my teen years. Once I really got into a place where I was very lonely and very sad, and I was starting to have a lot more sexual feelings, and hentai exists on the internet. You can look at pictures of Asuka and Rei. If you Google hentai, you can look at pictures of Asuka and Rei naked. So I got into anime in a different way by watching Evangelion and Haruhi and really connecting with it in more of a personal way. And then, I got really into moe shows. But, circa the 2000s, or late 2000s, I was, all aesthetics. That was all that mattered to me. Was like I wanted Shaft shows pretty much exclusively. Like I just wanted everything to be really unique, and I didn't care about the story at all. I was like, I just want to watch shows that have really cool visuals and relatable, fun characters because I'm lonely and I want to watch people have a group of friends talk about shit, you know? So, like, that's what I was focused on, and then also just consuming anything that people were saying was good. Because, like, I've always taken being an anime fan as sort of an identity, you know, as like, I want to be as good at being an anime fan as possible. It's like a passion towards being the most otaku you can be, you know? And so I was always trying to watch anything considered a classic, anything that people were saying is an anime you must see. And I could appreciate a lot of them on some level, but I wasn't necessarily a bigger fan of those. But because I was seeking to watch as much shit as possible, and then streaming became a thing, and it was very easy to find whatever the fuck you wanted, I was just like watching all kinds of shit and liking it for totally different reasons. So, you know, whereas I probably wouldn't have even watched a romance or a drama when I was a teenager, I would watch that shit by, you know, 2007, 2008, late teens, still a teenager, but, you know, I got really into moe and really into that kind of stuff that I never would have given a second glance a few years earlier. But even in that era, because I would check out with more plot-driven stuff. Like, I really wanted stuff that was more like, just sit back and relax and watch these characters have fun and say funny things and have cool aesthetics and cute girls, you know? And, like, I still enjoyed action shows a whole lot too, but I liked stuff that I just wanted to see the action scenes, you know? Like, I was so super into, like, Sword of the Stranger, which is, the plot fucking sucks, but the action is really cool, so it was all that mattered to me. And, like, so we're gonna get to that. It's like something where my opinion's gone the other way about. So, like, in the, you know, the late 2000s, I probably would not have enjoyed, like, I hated Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. Oh, God, I said that weird. I hated that show because I thought it was boring as fuck. It was just characters standing around talking, and I did not like the aesthetic. I hated the way Motoko Kusanagi looked in that stupid, weird, like, leotard thing that she wears in the first season, which I still think looks terrible, but, I mean, she looks good in it. It's just, you know, like, the artwork is good in the show, which I now appreciate, but I just did not aesthetically resonate with it at all at the time, and I was like, this shit is ugly and boring, I don't like it. And then I come back in, like, 2014, and I think my taste had just matured a lot, but it's funny because I had kind of, like, I was starting to enjoy more plot-centric shows towards, like, 2011, but then I kind of just wasn't really watching that much anime for about 2 years when I got into the Brony fandom. And, like, it was kind of just like I was burned out on anime for a while. And, you know, I knew I would come back to it because it's not like I'm, you know, I've been such a long time fan, but I had various periods where I did not have access to anime. And, like, in those times, I got really into music, really into video games. So, like, in times, you know, either because, like, my internet was shitty or my family just didn't have money, like, you know, I was into other stuff, like, and, you know, I also had gotten into RPGs because of the fact that they are so similar to anime, so it's like, sometimes I want to go off and do something else for a while, you know, and be like, I'm going to play video games for a month, and, like, keep that as a thing I do as well. Maybe I won't be watching any anime in that time, you know, but, like, because of having a long period where I wasn't really watching anything, by the time I came back, my tastes were very different, and I cared a lot more about all the theming and shit in shows. I was really interested in, like, you know, what kind of deeper stuff I could find out about them, and also I had a much better understanding of, like, how to talk about visuals and what makes visuals interesting because of stuff like Every Frame of Painting existing and all the anime bloggers that I used to read back in the day who were at a much higher writing level than I was, you know, but I was taking influence from them. So, like, you know, between all of that, when I got back into anime, I was looking for very different things. And so I think I enjoyed a lot of shit at that time that I just wouldn't have, such as Ghost in the Shell. Like, I watched that and I fucking loved it. I gave it like a 10 out of 10 because I was like, everything I thought about this before was wrong, you know? But, like, a lot of shit that I either would have liked as a kid or just was kind of into like Samurai Deeper Kyo. Like I was into it just because it had samurai. I was never like a huge fan, but I felt like I was supposed to be. And looking back on it, that show seems fucking terrible. And like Sword of the Stranger, I mean, I made a whole video about why that movie I thought was not really worth watching, except for the ending fight scene. Like that fight is legendary, but the rest of the movie is not really salvageable in my eyes. It's not a terrible movie. It's just like, oh, this was a huge disappointment to go back and rewatch after like having remembered enjoying it a lot as a kid. But like, I don't know if there's anything where it's like I would completely say it's dog shit and I can't believe I enjoyed it. Um, Most of the stuff that I felt stronger about, I feel like there's some level of appreciation for, like maybe Inuyasha. Like I'm not like into Inuyasha anymore, but I see why I would have liked it back then, and I don't begrudge its existence or anything. Like I probably would if I had been into Sword Art Online when I was younger. And I'll also say that like in 2014, I was definitely more like prudish about like certain elements of like the fan service and shit in anime. I think I was just like I was coming from a place of like having just been around a lot of people who were like really not into fan service, and like it was kind of not cool to like, in a certain way, like especially among anime bloggers who saw themselves as like sophisticated and they don't really like to acknowledge fan service shows. Um, and so like I think that I was a little bit more like, oh well, this show has, some fan service that could be seen as disagreeable, and I still might even make note of that, but like I enjoy that shit. I don't really begrudge its existence. I don't think it's problematic, like it's not that I'm always going to enjoy a show that has like, maybe grungier fan service, but like if it's done well, I'm gonna enjoy the show. I will enjoy anything that's done well, that I think is artistically meritorious or even just sexy, So, like, yeah, I think that that's changed as well. I would not probably be even, like, factoring that into my overall opinion of a show if I were to watch it today. Um, so, yeah, that's, like, all the ways that I think my taste has changed considerably over the years. At this point, I'm, like, a jack of all trades. It's, like, basically I just like or dislike things based on watching them and judging them in the moment, and that's my opinion. It's I'm pretty sure of myself. It's not like there's genres I do or don't like completely vehemently despise. It's more just like I watch a show, I form an opinion, that's that. So yeah, that's where we stand.